Hi, Andrew. Thank you for submitting these essays. I don't know what you mean by you tried to send them. Nothing came through uh, the email account. So anyway, we have it here now. So let's see what you've done. First, we've got the shoe sales. Let's see what you did here. The bar chart shows the sales of brown and black leather shoes across 9 countries in the year of 2018. All right, just say in the year 2018. You don't need the year of, okay? In 2018, perfect, clean, simple. All right, so across 9 countries in 2018 or 9 countries in the year 2018. All right, it is clear that brown leather shoes are more popular in France, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland, whereas in Italy, Hungary, and the UK, black is the more favorable option. Hungary has the highest black leather shoe sales across all countries with 140,000, more than 6 times of those in France, which stands at 25,000. Okay, let me see what you've done here. Trying to understand your organization. So you decided to start with brown leather shoes. Fine, so brown is this pink color. And you talked about France, yes, and then Germany, and then Ireland, and you talked about Holland and Poland. Just bear with me for a second. And then you talked about Italy. Where's Italy? Okay, Italy, Hungary, and then the UK. All right, what about Belgium? You didn't mention Belgium at all, which I thought was really strange because Belgium actually, look at that huge difference, right? It's probably the biggest difference in the chart. So I'm surprised you didn't mention Belgium here. Okay, but let's see. So you decide to talk about which country's brown is more. And then you gave us some detail where you said Hungary, which is the highest in the chart. 140,000, and then you talked about France, focusing on black leather shoes only, 25. Okay, so I don't 100% understand your organization because you went with this kind of holistic, okay, brown shoes versus black shoes, but then all of a sudden you gave me this information about black shoes. But all right, let's see what happens in your following paragraphs. As the graph has shown, France and Poland both have double the amount of brown leather shoes in comparison to black. Full stop here. All right, new sentence. In particular, people in Poland not buy, but they bought in 2018 bought the most brown leather shoes, topping the sales number of all countries with 135,000. Okay. On the other hand, in Belgium, only a minority of less than 10,000 people have chosen the brown leather. Not have, it's 2018, so there should be no present perfect here. Chose the brown leather option. All right, so what have you told me here? You told me the top for brown leather shoes and the bottom for brown leather shoes. You told me the top for black and the bottom for black. Okay. Overall, despite preference in leather colors, the sales difference in most of the countries range between, okay, except for Belgium, where a vast majority. Okay. So here's the good news, Andrew. The good news is that your grammar was good. I didn't really have to correct anything. I thought it was fine. But I can't say that I agree with your organization. And I'll tell you another thing that I can't say. I can't say what your overview is. Because first I thought this was your overview. And then I said, well, maybe it's not because look at all this detail you have here. 6 times this, 140,000. And then here you start with the word overall, which is usually a signpost telling us that this is your overview. But it's not an overview because again, you have all this detail. So let's talk a little bit about this. What should an overview have? So what an overview is it's a statement that essentially tells us what the most glaringly obvious thing, the biggest trend, the thing that sticks out, the thing that's like super obvious, and is maybe the most important thing to point out here. So let's talk about what that is here. For me, it's a couple of things. Okay. For me, it's probably that of the two different shoe types, Hungary sold, Hungary sold the most black leather shoes. Okay. While Poland sold the most brown, and the fewest shoes sold were black in France and brown in Belgium. All right, so that's something you could have done. Or you could have gotten rid of even two pieces of this information. You could have said that the highest figure on the chart belonged to Hungary with black leather shoes, while the lowest belonged to Belgium with brown leather shoes. Now that's an overview because really what I'm doing is I'm telling you what the high and the low is, but I'm not giving you any data. Data is what makes it no longer be an overview. Once you have figures, once you have numbers, it stops being an overview and it starts being detail. So that's why my overview, as I just told it to you, has no detail. It just says, this was the top, black leather shoes. This was the bottom, brown leather shoes, this country. Okay? So that's what your overview should look like. Now, I'm a huge supporter of having the overview come directly after the introduction. There are a lot of reasons for this. We don't have time to get into it, but if you really want to know, I'll answer it in another email. But my opinion is first introduction, then overview. Okay? And then you can get to the details. I thought your details weren't really well organized. I couldn't follow your logic. So what you want to do is you want to describe this in such a way that the person reading it doesn't actually have to have the graph in front of them. So for me, one way I would do this is I would have one paragraph for black leather shoes, and then I would have a paragraph for brown leather shoes. You are correct in that you cannot talk about all 18 pieces of information. That would be wrong. But I do feel like you didn't talk about enough. But going back to my previous point, I would spend one paragraph about black and another paragraph about brown. And then let me show you how I would do that. Basically, I would use these numbers along the side as like guidelines, okay, as like guideposts. I'm not really sure what the right word is. So what I would do is I would say, regarding black leather shoes, 3 countries sold over 100,000 pairs in 2018. Of these, Hungary sold the most at roughly 140,000, followed by Italy at 125,000. Belgium sold just over 100,000 black pairs of shoes. In contrast, the fewest black leather shoes were sold in France at roughly 35,000. All the remaining countries, and then I would name them, UK, Germany, etc., 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 all sold between 50,000 and 100,000 black leather shoes. And then I'm done. And then I go on to the paragraph about brown leather shoes, and then I do something similar. Here I've got 4 countries selling over 100,000, but I've got Poland clearly in the lead, and I've got Germany and Hungary tying, and then I've got this, and I would definitely make a point of emphasizing this. It's the lowest figure on the graph, on the chart, okay? But I would do something very similar. So that's how I would do it. So using these numbers, saying that the remaining countries and then saying what they were, all sold between 50 and 100,000, you're not giving me so much detail that I'm bored or that like I've gotten distracted. Okay, so I hope that makes sense how I would do it. See if you can give it a try like that. Now let's take a look at this traditional food being replaced by fast food. Okay, let's see. Experts throughout the developing and developed world have debated debated on the influence of fast food replacing traditional foods. Some believe that it has a negative impact on different levels of the society. I don't like this here. You just have a comma here. A comma is not enough because it's very separate ideas, and it's not enough to just, have essentially separate sentences not related to each other and just combine them with a comma. Doesn't work. You have to do something a little bit more. We'll talk about it in a minute. This essay will discuss the impact of convenience food using examples and a study from the government of Japan to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, that's fine. So let's go back to this sentence. Some believe that it has a negative impact on different levels of society. And personally, I strongly agree with the statement. That's it. Okay. And then the rest is fine. So let's keep going. I'll tell you right now one thing I don't like. When you say firstly, you have to have a secondly. It can't just be firstly on its own. Okay. Keep that in mind. So, firstly, there's ample evidence that burgers, fries, and even fried chicken, singular, not plural, play a big part in the growing obesity epidemic in developed countries. The central reason behind this is that most fast food options are unhealthy compared to traditional food alternatives. Okay? For example, recent empirical research from the government of Japan demonstrated that work individuals who rarely have McDonald's for lunch have 30% more unsaturated fat in their bloodstream compared to those who take ramen as an option. On top of that, it must not be forgotten that the companies behind the food chain try to increase their market share by lowering their meal price. As a result, full stop here. It's already pretty long, okay? Full stop. New sentence. As a result, more and more low-income families in the society are taking this unhealthy option as a regular diet. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that fast food is not only a threat to the health of an individual, but also contributes to decreasing health quality in societies. Okay, I was wondering when you were going to throw it out there, and you did it, finally. You did it in the last sentence. You mentioned that here I'm talking about how it affects the individual and how it affects the society. I think you could have done it in the first sentence as well. Okay, so something like, firstly, there is ample evidence that, et cetera, are damaging the health of individuals and society as a whole. Okay, and then I would have been like, okay, here's where we're talking about individuals and society. All right. So really kind of guide me, show me, like, look, I know what the question asks, and see how focused my answer is. So show me how focused your answer is. Tell me this paragraph is talking about individuals and society. Okay. All right. Secondly, remember what I said before. Secondly, different local cuisines often embody an important part of local culture. Oh, good. Although upkeeping, that's a strange expression. Although upkeeping of traditional restaurants would be costly to some governments, the impact of food tourism cannot be overstated, not overseen. For instance, if the majority of restaurants in a country have been replaced by fast food, tourists who are eager to try different local food would be deterred from traveling to that country. Ultimately, less tourist income would be brought to the society. Thus, it's possible to state beyond doubt that traditional cuisine being replaced by fast food poses a detrimental effect on culinary tourism in society. You know, I thought you were going to talk about family, and I was excited. I was like, all right, Andrew's got it, but you didn't. So this for me is not such a great idea. Let me look at your conclusion and then we'll talk about it. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that ready meals replacing ethnic cuisines pose with an E. Hidden danger on several levels of the society is predicted that the role of local cuisines will increasingly grow in importance. Okay, that's fine. So let's go back to this. Negative impact on families, individuals, and society. There are a lot of ways to do this. You talked about individuals and society here. I thought you could have done a better job of being focused. I already told you that. But you needed to talk about families. And this whole idea of local culture, you could have applied it to family. Okay? So you could have said something like, with families more and more, living a fast-paced lifestyle, individual members no longer have time to cook or even eat together. As a result, many traditional recipes are being lost and substituted by, international fast food. What ends up happening is that family bonds suffer because people are not cooking or eating together, and these recipes over time are lost, damaging not just the family bond, but the culture of the society as well. Okay, so if you had said something like that as like a general idea, saying how families suffer because they're not cooking together, they're not eating together, and so they're not bonding, those bonds are not as strong. And then you could have also talked about how, you know, it's a loss of culture when these recipes are no longer used, right? And that affects society, not just the family. So that's the kind of thing I wanted to see in this paragraph. You were so close, but it didn't quite hit the mark. So you really didn't talk about families anywhere. And so that, of course, is going to cost you in terms of task achievement. Okay. At least to some degree, it's going to cost you. So good effort in general, but here I definitely felt that you quite missed the mark. Keep at it, Andrew. Yeah, you know, I hope that the feedback is helpful. Let me know if you have any thoughts on it and if there's any questions you have, and I'll be looking forward for your next.